In this edition of INN CEO Talks, we're discussing Australian gold with Outback Goldfields CEO and Director Chris Donaldson. Chris, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Stuart.
You know, Goldfields, you've got the Fosterville Gold District where you have a great project with, what looks like a good reserve and low cost. Tell us about this project.
Yeah, so we have 4 projects actually in and around the Fosterville mine, which is why a lot of people call it the Fosterville Goldfields right now, but really it's the Victorian Goldfields.
And it's a historic site, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, and they had a gold rush in 1850 that went for about 70 years, and it kind of put Australia on the map. At one point, I think they were the richest country in the world. And miners from all around the world were coming in and mining this high-grade, nuggety gold at or near surface. And they did so very well for 70 years. And then they basically mined it out until they hit cover. And the cover there is like a basalt cover, or they hit the water table. And then they stopped. And for the next 100 years, it was very difficult mining. Until, of course, Fosterville came around about 6-7 years ago and made a phenomenal discovery of a swan zone in their mine, and has started what they're now calling the second gold rush. And so we were fortunate enough to acquire some properties that were assembled 5 years ago, right when that was starting, in and around the Fosterville mine and in the area, and are using modern techniques to try to go below that cover and see if we can find the fluid source for that high grade nuggety gold.
So exactly what stage are you at right now? Like, what is happening on the ground?
On the ground. So I mean, definitely early stage. It's interesting on the properties we have. We have 4 of them. We're actively working on 2 of them right now, and the ones that we have actually had not very much exploration ever occurred on it because it had that cover. Yeah. Yet in many of the cases, in both cases actually, there's been tremendous production in and around the area where there was outcrop and it was easy to mine and so forth. So for us right now, it's early stage exploration. We're identifying targets, but we have an active program and are in full swing.
What's your schedule moving towards putting drills in the ground to try and prove out what you believe is a good resource?
Yeah, so I mean, we're doing what's prudent right now, which is taking the time and really doing things methodically. So we're doing an extensive soil sampling program across the, in the case of our Ballarat West project and actually our Ewangoon project, we're doing soil programs looking for high levels of arsenic. And while there may be arsenic, there's not always gold, but certainly if there's gold, there's generally arsenic. So it's associated with that. So we're looking to get some heat maps of this anomalous arsenic, which really guides us for where we should do the diamond drilling, which is more expensive, but also goes a lot deeper, and hopefully we were able to find something there.
So we talk about this as being a historic site, but does that mean that the resources have been left behind as far as infrastructure is concerned? Should you be able to move to the next stage? Like, how accessible is this, and how accessible are all of those resources that you would need to build out a mine? Yeah,
I mean, good question. So this is, about as good of a jurisdiction as you can be in. Roads there, power there, workers there. I mean, it's an absolute mining community, which is why early stage companies, if they do make a discovery, tend to get rewarded very heavily. And part of that is because the chance of that ultimately becoming a mine is a lot greater than, say, if you're in an absolute remote area and you have the same discovery, then you got to put in the roads and power, et cetera. So very attractive for junior explorers to go into the area. The challenge now, just of course, of finding some gold.
You talked earlier about the fact that Australia at one time was the richest country in the world because it was such a prolific mining jurisdiction. Today, when we take a look at the regulatory environment and the workforce, where do we classify Australia? Is it a great place to be mining, or is it one that still, or might have some restrictions associated with it?
Well, I mean, it's a first world country. They have, processes in place. Certainly there's bureaucracy. But the counter to that is it's a known bureaucracy. So they, their timelines that take longer than I would like, but you get there. They permit mines, they permit drilling, and so forth. So for us, at least, it's something that you can predict. So it's a good place to be mining.
Let's talk about the gold market right at the moment, because it looks to me like that entire market is now moving towards, an increase in value and an increase in demand.
Yeah, I mean, the gold market, it's never a straight line, but over the last few years, it's definitely trending in the right direction. The broader markets are having challenges right now, and I think that might be putting pressure on the gold market right now. I think eventually, that will decouple, and gold will do and act how it should, as a good hedge when you're in an inflationary environment, and also when there's turbulence on the geopolitical side. The reality is we're up at $1,900 gold plus or minus right now, which is much higher than it was 5 years ago. We would have been begging to be at this level, and if a mine can't last or survive at that level, it probably has challenges anyways, right? So the good news in this area is it's ultra high grade in the gold fields. And generally, higher margins, so lower cost mining. So we could survive in a lower level. I mean, my challenge right now is not so much on what the gold price is. Of course, that helps just bring interest in the whole sector, but it's just making that discovery and getting on the table.
Well, as we know, sort of in the development from exploration through to proven resource and then building out, it's a multi-year process. And right now, when I talk about the market, I think, okay, this is the time that we need to be starting these projects, knowing that it's going to take a few years for them to come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're playing catch up a bit from the underinvestment in the whole sector over the last, say 8 years. And a lot of money's going in, especially in Victoria alone. I think there's $250 million worth of exploration going into the region within, say, a couple hundred kilometers of where we're drilling. A lot of that is from the Fosterville mine or Kirkland Lake. They're putting in 100 of that $250 million. The benefit is that if anybody makes a discovery in the area, it generally benefits all of us. So, and we're starting to see a couple of juniors having some success, and they've been rewarded. And hopefully Fosterville, is able to find more of what they already have, and all boats float.
So for investors who are watching right now, what's the number one message that you want them to take away about Outback Goldfields?
Yeah, I mean, the number one message is we're exploring what we consider as perspective of a land in any part of the world right now. For instance, our Ballarat West property, 40,000 plus hectares. There has been 17 million ounces of gold produced and producing within 3 kilometers or 3 miles or 5 kilometers of the property. Yet we're on an area that's virtually untested. And just on the balance of probabilities, you think there's probably something there. It's just our challenge now to find it.
You're in a good neighborhood.
We're in a great neighborhood.
Yeah. So news. When should we look for next news from you in the coming months?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we're in the target identification phase. We're about halfway through a soil program. We've done about 650 holes of the 1,300. We'll get those results this summer, and then really have some key targets that we'll start drilling on. So for the back half of this year, we should have some steady news, and with a bit of luck and some good planning here, hopefully we find something.
Great. And one final question, that a lot of investors are always asking, do you have the financial resources that you need to move through the next stage?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is, we didn't spend a ton of money last year and went after our initial raise, so we certainly have enough for the next year or so to fulfill the exploration program that we have in front of us. Interesting project to keep an eye on, and now would be a good time for investors to give it a good close look. I bought some shares last week. All right, well, thank you. And I hope you'll come back and update us in the coming months. Absolutely. Wonderful, thank you.